The emergency lights cast red shadows across the underground command center as another explosion shook dust from the ceiling. David Ross wiped sweat from his forehead and stared at the tactical display showing their failing defenses. 3 months. Ego Haven's Rest had been a thriving mining colony with bright futures ahead. Now it was a tomb waiting to be sealed. Maria Santos burst through the reinforced door, her security uniform torn and stained with dirt. Her rifle hung loose in her tired hands as she approached the command table. "The north perimeter is gone," she said without emotion. "Whatever those things are using for weapons, our shields can't stop them much longer." David nodded slowly. He had expected this news for days now. The reptilian creatures that called themselves the Vorthak had appeared in their system like a plague, destroying everything in their path. Their ships blocked out the sun, their weapons turned solid rock into glass, and their soldiers moved through the colony's outer sections like death itself. "How many people do we have left in the shelters?" David asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Just under 2,000, Maria replied. "The children are asking when their parents will come back. I don't know what to tell them anymore." Through the thick walls, they could hear the distant sound of energy weapons firing. Each blast meant another defense position was falling, another group of colonists was retreating deeper underground. The Vorthak had been patient hunters, slowly squeezing the life out of Haven's Rest like a snake crushing its prey. Dr. Thomas Green looked up from his medical station where he had been treating wounded defenders. "The injured keep asking the same question," he said quietly. "They want to know if Earth received our distress signal. They want to know if help is coming." David felt the weight of leadership crushing down on him like the desert rocks above. Their heads. He had sent that distress beacon 6 months ago when the first Vorthak scouts appeared. The message would take time to reach Earth, and even more time for any response to arrive. Space was vast and cold, and Haven's Rest was very far from home. "Sir," called out Communications Officer Lisa Park from her station. "I'm picking up Vorthak transmissions again. They're not even trying to hide their communications anymore." "What are they saying?" Maria asked, moving closer to the communication console. Lisa's face went pale as she listened to the alien voices through her headset. "Their commander is talking about final preparations, something about crushing the last human nest and claiming the mining equipment for their empire." The command center fell silent except for the hum of failing life support systems. Everyone knew what those words meant. The Vorthak were preparing for their final assault, the one that would break through their remaining defenses and flood the underground shelters with death. David walked to the small window that looked out into the colony's main tunnel system. Red emergency lights flickered along the walls, creating dancing shadows that looked like ghosts of the dead. Families huddled together in the distance, sharing their last food rations and telling stories to keep the children calm. "Remember when we first arrived here?" Maria said, joining him at the window. "The sun was setting over those red mountains, and everything looked so peaceful. We thought we had found paradise." "Paradise has a way of turning into hell when you're not looking," David replied. "But these people trusted us to keep them safe. We can't give up on them now." A young engineer named Ryan Walsh approached the command table with a tablet in his hands. His face showed the same exhaustion that marked everyone in the colony, but his eyes still held determination. "I've been working on the power grid," he said. "If we reroute energy from non-essential systems, we might be able to boost the shields for another day or two." "Do it," David ordered. "Every hour we can buy them is another hour for rescue to arrive." Maria laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Rescue? David, we're alone out here. Earth is so far away that our children will be old before any help could reach us. We're fighting for time we don't have against an enemy we can't defeat." "Then we fight anyway," David said firmly, "because that's what humans do. We don't surrender, and we don't abandon each other." Another explosion, closer this time, sent vibrations through the floor. The lights flickered and several computer screens went dark before backup power restored them. Through the communication system, they could hear frightened voices from the shelter levels below, asking what was happening. Dr. Green moved between the wounded, checking vital signs and administering what little medicine remained. His supplies were almost gone, but he continued working as if he had unlimited resources. "Some of these people won't survive another direct attack," he said to David. "The stress and fear are killing them as surely as Vorthak weapons would." David looked around the command center at the faces of his people. They were tired, scared, and running out of hope. But they were still here, still fighting, still refusing to let the darkness win. These miners and engineers and teachers had become warriors not by choice but by necessity. "Listen to me," David said, his voice carrying across the room. "I know things look bad. I know we're outgunned and outnumbered. But we're still alive, and that means we still have a chance. Somewhere out there in the darkness, Earth knows we're in trouble. They haven't forgotten us." Lisa looked up from her console with tears in her eyes. "What if they have forgotten us? What if we're really alone?" David walked over and placed his hand on her shoulder. "Then we make our stand here and show these aliens what humans are made of. We protect our families and our home until the very end. That's what we do." The red lights continued to flicker as Haven's Rest prepared for its final battle. Above them, Vorthak General Thrak studied tactical displays showing the colony's weakening defenses. He had conquered 100 worlds and destroyed countless species, but something about these humans puzzled him. They should have surrendered weeks ago, yet they continued to resist against impossible odds. In the depths of the colony, children slept in their parents' arms, while adults maintained their silent vigil in the dark. They did not know that their beacon had indeed reached Earth, or that the most powerful military force in human history was already racing through the void toward them. They only knew that they would not surrender, would not abandon hope, and would not let the darkness claim them without a fight. The wait continued in the red-lit tunnels of Haven's Rest, where 2,000 humans held on to life and faith in equal measure. The war room deep beneath Earth's defense command buzzed with controlled chaos as Admiral Rebecca Stone studied the holographic display floating above the central table. Red dots marked Vorthak fleet positions, while a single blue dot showed Haven's Rest, flickering weakly like a dying star. The distress beacon had reached Earth 3 weeks ago, carrying with it the desperate voices of 2,000 human souls trapped in the void. "Time to target?" Rebecca asked, without taking her eyes off the display. Commander Nick Torres, his weathered face showing years of deep space combat, checked his datapad before responding. 14 days if we push the engines to maximum burn. The fleet is assembled and ready to deploy." Rebecca nodded slowly. She had seen the footage from Haven's Rest before the Vorthak cut their communications. Families running for shelter, defense stations exploding in balls of fire, and colonists making their last stand against an enemy that showed no mercy. The images had burned themselves into her memory and fueled a cold anger that would not rest until justice was served. Captain Alex Rivers entered the briefing room with quick, determined steps. His ship, the assault cruiser Retribution, would lead the attack force once they reached the Kepler system. Behind him walked Dr. Emily Carter, the xenobiology expert who had spent months studying captured Vorthak technology and prisoners. "Status report," Rebecca commanded as the group gathered around the tactical display. Alex activated his own datapad and began reading. "The 7th Expeditionary Fleet is at full strength, 12,000 of our best soldiers across 15 ships. We have the Retribution, Ghost Runner, Thunderstrike, Iron Will, and 11 support vessels. Every ship is loaded with the new plasma weapons and powered armor systems." Dr. Carter stepped forward, her scientific mind focused on the enemy they would face. "The Vorthak are reptilian humanoids with thick scales that resist standard energy weapons. They're stronger than humans, but slower to react. Their technology relies on brute force rather than precision. However, they have one weakness we can exploit. Which is? Nick asked, leaning forward with interest. They've never faced an enemy that fights back effectively, Emily explained. Every species they've conquered surrendered quickly or was wiped out before mounting serious resistance. They don't expect coordinated counterattacks or advanced tactical thinking. Rebecca smiled grimly. Then we're going to give them an education they'll never forget. The holographic display shifted to show the fleet composition. Each ship appeared as a detailed three-dimensional model, bristling with weapons and armor. The soldiers aboard these vessels represented the finest military force humanity had ever assembled, trained specifically for this type of deep space. Rescue operation, tech specialist Ryan Walsh joined the briefing, carrying a tablet loaded with intelligence data. His expertise in alien communication systems would be crucial for the mission's success. Admiral, I've been analyzing Vorthak transmission patterns. They use a hierarchical command structure with limited field autonomy. If we can disrupt their communications, their ground forces will be unable to coordinate effectively. What about their orbital defenses? Alex asked, studying the tactical projections. Emily pulled up another display showing Vorthak ship configurations. Their vessels are heavily armed but poorly shielded. They rely on overwhelming firepower rather than defensive systems. Our stealth capabilities should give us a significant advantage in the initial engagement. Rebecca walked around the display table, examining every detail of their battle plan. She had spent her entire career preparing for moments like this, but the stakes had never been higher. 2,000 human lives hung in the balance, and failure was not an option. "Listen carefully," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded fleets across the galaxy. The Vorthak think they're hunting defenseless prey. They've isolated Haven's Rest and are slowly crushing our people for sport. But they made one critical mistake. Which is? Nick asked. They hurt our people, Rebecca replied, her eyes hard as steel. And humans never forget when someone hurts our own. The briefing room fell silent as the weight of her words settled over the assembled officers. Each person in that room had sworn an oath to protect human colonies, no matter how far from Earth they might be. Haven's Rest was calling for help, and Earth's warriors would answer. Lieutenant Paul Anderson entered with the latest intelligence reports. Admiral, we've received additional data from our long-range sensors. The Vorthak have established a blockade around the entire Kepler system. At least 30 ships of various sizes, including their flagship commanded by Admiral Scrax. Rebecca studied the new information with growing determination. 30 ships against our 15. Those are acceptable odds. Alex raised an eyebrow. Acceptable? Admiral, they outnumber us 2-1. Numbers don't win battles, Rebecca replied. Training, determination, and superior tactics win battles. The Vorthak have become overconfident from easy victories. We're going to show them what happens when they face an enemy that fights back. Dr. Carter activated another hologram, showing the surface of Haven's Rest. The colony's defensive positions were clearly marked, along with the estimated locations of Vorthak ground forces. The colonists have held out for 3 months against overwhelming odds. They're buying us time with their lives. Then we won't waste the time they've given us, Rebecca said firmly. We launch in 6 hours. Final equipment checks, crew briefings, and tactical reviews. When we drop out of hyperspace, at Kepler, I want every system online and every weapon ready to fire. Sergeant First Class Kate Miller joined the group, her powered armor gleaming under the briefing room lights. She would lead the ground assault once they broke through the orbital blockade. Admiral, the troops are ready. They've been training. For urban combat and hostage rescue scenarios, every soldier knows what's at stake. Rebecca looked around at her officers, seeing the same determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. These were not just military personnel following orders. They were humans responding to the cries of their own kind, crossing the vast, Emptiness of space to bring hope to those who had waited in darkness. The Vorthak Empire has spent centuries conquering weaker species, she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. They crush resistance, destroy hope, and leave nothing but death behind them. But they've never faced humanity before. Nick activated the fleet communication system, connecting the briefing room to every ship in the assembled force. Thousands of human voices fell silent as their admiral prepared to address them. "Soldiers of Earth," Rebecca began, her words carrying across the void to every warrior who would make the journey to Haven's Rest. "Our people are under attack. Our colonists are dying. They've been alone in the dark for 3 months, fighting an enemy that wants to erase them from existence." She paused, letting the weight of the situation settle over her audience. "But they won't be alone much longer. We're going to cross the galaxy and show these aliens what human determination looks like. We're going to break their blockade, shatter their ground forces, and remind the universe that no human dies forgotten." The communication system crackled with the sound of 12,000 voices cheering in unison. On 15 ships scattered across Earth's orbital defense grid, soldiers checked their weapons, engineers ran final diagnostics, and pilots prepared for the longest military deployment in human history. Rebecca Stone looked out through the command center's viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere in that infinite darkness, 2,000 humans waited for salvation. The 7th Expeditionary Fleet would not disappoint them. The gathering storm was about to break, and Earth's warriors were riding its winds toward a distant battle that would determine the fate of humanity's expansion into the galaxy. The silence of hyperspace shattered like breaking glass as 15 human warships dropped back into normal space at the edge of the Kepler system. Reality twisted around them as exotic matter drives powered down and conventional engines roared to life. Admiral Rebecca Stone felt the familiar sensation of her body adjusting to real-time physics after 2 weeks of faster-than-light travel. "All ships reporting successful transition," announced Communications Officer Lisa Park from her station aboard the flagship Retribution. "The fleet is intact and ready for combat operations." Rebecca studied the tactical display that materialized before her command chair. 30 red contacts marked Vorthak positions throughout the system, their vessels arranged in a loose blockade around Haven's Rest. The alien ships hung in space like predators circling wounded prey, confident in their overwhelming numerical advantage. "They haven't detected us yet," reported Captain Alex Rivers from the sensor station. "We're operating under full stealth protocols, using the asteroid field for cover." On the bridge of the stealth destroyer Ghost Runner, Commander Nick Torres watched his own displays with growing anticipation. His ship specialized in electronic warfare and covert operations, making it the perfect weapon for the first phase of their assault. "Passive scans complete," he transmitted to the fleet. "Vorthak sensor arrays are exactly where intelligence predicted. I can disable their early warning systems on your command." Rebecca activated the fleet-wide communication channel, her voice reaching every ship in the task force. "This is Admiral Stone to all vessels. Remember why we're here. 2,000 human souls are depending on us. We didn't cross the galaxy to fail them now." The response came as a chorus of acknowledgments from 15 ships scattered across several light minutes of space. Each vessel carried humanity's finest warriors, equipped with weapons and armor that represented decades of military development. They had trained for this moment, prepared for this battle, and sworn oaths to protect human colonies no matter where they might be found. "Ghost Runner, you are cleared to begin Phase 1, Rebecca commanded. Nick's ship accelerated toward the outer edge of the Vorthak sensor network, its stealth systems bending light and energy around the hull until it became nearly invisible against the star field. On his bridge, tech specialist Ryan Walsh monitored alien communication frequencies while preparing to launch his electronic attack. "Vorthak communications are routine patrol chatter," Ryan reported. "They're discussing human, defensive positions on the planet's surface. No indication they know we're here. The Ghost Runner reached optimal position within minutes, its advanced engines allowing for rapid maneuvering despite its stealth configuration. Nick gave the signal, and Ryan unleashed a coordinated cyber assault against the alien sensor network. Across the Vorthak fleet, warning lights began flashing as their detection systems failed one by one. Admiral Scrax, commanding the blockade from his flagship, watched in confusion as his tactical displays went dark. The reptilian commander had conquered dozens of star systems without encountering significant resistance, and this sudden technical failure puzzled him. "Engineering reports across the fleet," announced his communications officer in the harsh Vorthak language. "Sensor systems are experiencing cascading failures. Cause unknown." Scrax's scaled face showed irritation rather than concern. In his experience, primitive species like humans lack the technology to mount sophisticated attacks against Vorthak equipment. Order the engineering teams to restore full functionality immediately. These mammals are probably using some crude jamming device. While the alien fleet struggled with their disabled sensors, Rebecca's task force moved into attack formation. The assault cruiser Retribution led the charge, its hull bristling with plasma weapons and missile launchers. Behind it came Thunderstrike and Iron Will, heavy cruisers designed for ship-to-ship combat in deep space environments. "All ships report ready for engagement," Alex announced from his tactical station. "Weapons are charged, shields are at maximum, power and fighters are prepared for launch." Rebecca stood from her command chair, her admiral's uniform spotless despite 2 weeks of space travel. Around her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, each person focused on their specific role in the coming battle. These were the moments that defined military careers and determined the fate of nations. "Fleet command to all vessels," she said into the communication system. "Execute attack pattern Delta. Show these aliens what happens when they threaten human colonies." The human fleet burst from the asteroid field like avenging angels, their engines blazing trails of blue fire across the darkness of space. Plasma weapons charged to full power, while missile tubes loaded with high-explosive warheads. Fighter squadrons launched from carrier bays, their pilots eager to engage an enemy that had terrorized defenseless colonists for months. Aboard the Vorthak flagship, alarms began screaming as the human attack force appeared on what few sensors remained operational. Scrax stared at his tactical display in disbelief as 15 human ships accelerated toward his much larger fleet. "How did they cross interstellar space so quickly?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "Our intelligence indicated that human vessels lack the range for deep space operations." "Unknown, Admiral," came the reply. "But they are broadcasting on multiple frequencies. Intercepting transmission now." Rebecca's voice filled the alien bridge as her message reached every Vorthak ship in the system. Her words were calm and professional, but carried an underlying threat that needed no translation. "This is Admiral Stone of the Earth Defense Force, 7th Expeditionary Fleet. You have attacked human colonies and threatened innocent civilians. Surrender now or face the consequences." Scrax laughed, his reptilian features twisting into what might have been amusement. 15 ships against 30? These mammals must be desperate if they think such a small force can challenge the might of the Vorthak Empire. The first human plasma barrage answered his mockery with devastating effect. The Retribution's main guns fired in perfect synchronization, their energy beams slicing through Vorthak shields and armor like paper. 2 alien destroyers exploded in brilliant balls of fire, while a third listed helplessly with its engines destroyed. "All ships, concentrate fire on their command vessels," Rebecca ordered as the space battle intensified around them. "Break their coordination, and their fleet will collapse." Thunderstrike and Iron Will engaged a group of Vorthak cruisers, their superior maneuverability allowing them to avoid return fire while delivering precise strikes against critical systems. Human fighters swarmed around larger alien vessels, their small size and speed making them nearly impossible targets while they delivered devastating attacks against shield generators and weapon emplacements. On the surface of Haven's Rest, the AO, Colonists in their underground shelters felt the vibrations of orbital combat through the planet's crust. David Ross pressed his face to a periscope that extended to the surface, watching flashes of light appear and disappear among the stars. "Something's happening up there," he announced to the crowded command center. "Those lights, they're too regular to be natural phenomena." Maria Santos joined him at the observation post, her eyes tracking the distant battle. Could it be a rescue fleet? Did Earth actually send help? Before David could answer, the communication system crackled to life with a transmission from orbit. The voice that emerged was human, speaking with an accent that sounded like home itself. "Haven's Rest Colony. This is Admiral Stone of the 7th. Expeditionary Fleet, we received your distress beacon. Hold your positions and prepare for immediate extraction. The cavalry has arrived." The underground command center erupted in cheers as 2,000 colonists learned that they were no longer alone. Children began crying with relief, while adults embraced each other with tears streaming down their faces. The long wait in darkness was finally ending. Above them, the space battle continued with increasing intensity. Human ships danced through the void with deadly precision, their tactics confusing and overwhelming the Vorthak commanders who had never faced such organized resistance. One by one, alien vessels fell to superior human technology and training. Admiral Scrax watched his fleet disintegrate around him, finally understanding that he had underestimated these mammals in the most dangerous way possible. The humans had not come to negotiate or surrender. They had come to deliver judgment, and their sentence was death. "All ships, retreat to minimum safe distance," he ordered his remaining vessels. "We will bombard the planet's surface and deny the humans their prize." But Rebecca had anticipated this desperate gambit. As the surviving Vorthak ships turned toward Haven's Rest, drop pods began launching from human vessels like falling stars. Each pod carried a squad of elite soldiers in powered armor, racing toward the planet's surface to reinforce the colonists and begin the ground assault. The descent of Earth's angels had begun, and hell was coming with them. The first drop pod struck Haven's Rest surface at dawn, its impact crater still glowing with heat as Sergeant First Class Kate Miller emerged from the smoking metal shell. Her powered armor gleamed silver in the rising sun while diagnostic displays showed all systems operational. Around her, 17 more pods crashed into the desert sand like hammers of the gods. "Alpha Squad, sound off!" Kate commanded through her helmet communication system as she surveyed the battlefield before them. "Beta Squad ready," came the reply from Corporal Tim Rodriguez, his voice calm despite the chaos erupting around their landing zone. "Vorthak positions identified at 200 meters northeast." Kate activated her armor's targeting system and immediately saw what Tim meant. Dozens of reptilian soldiers were emerging from fortified positions, their scaled bodies, moving with surprising speed across the rocky terrain. These were not the desperate colonists the Vorthak had been hunting for months. These were Earth's finest warriors, and they had come to settle accounts. "All squads, weapons free," Kate announced as she raised her plasma rifle. "Show these aliens what human engineering looks like." The first volley from 18 powered armor suits lit up the dawn sky with streams of superheated energy. Vorthak shields flared and collapsed under the sustained barrage while their return fire scattered harmlessly off human armor plating. Kate smiled grimly inside her helmet as she watched enemy soldiers diving for cover behind rocks that would not protect them from her weapons. Lieutenant Paul Anderson's voice crackled through the communication network from his position aboard the orbiting Thunderstrike. "Ground forces, be advised that Vorthak reinforcements are moving toward your position from the south. I have orbital bombardment ready on your mark." Kate checked her tactical display and saw the approaching enemy units marked in red. General Thrak was committing his reserves to crush the human landing force before they could establish a foothold. It was exactly what she had hoped he would do. "Paul, give me a fire mission on grid reference 77 Alpha," she transmitted while advancing toward the Vorthak defensive line. "Danger close, but we can handle the heat." confirmed Kate. "Bombardment incoming in 30 seconds. All ground units take cover." The sky above Haven's Rest filled with streaks of light as the Thunderstrike's main guns fired from orbit. Each projectile was a tungsten rod accelerated to incredible velocity, carrying the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. When they struck the desert floor, the explosions were visible from space. Vorthak soldiers disappeared in balls of superheated sand and vaporized stone, while their fortified positions simply ceased to exist. The thunder of orbital bombardment rolled across the landscape like the voice of an angry god, announcing to every alien on the planet that humanity had arrived in force. "Direct hits on target," Paul reported with satisfaction. "Enemy reinforcements are neutralized. You have a clear path to the colony." Kate led her squads forward through the smoking craters, her armor's sensors tracking for any surviving enemies. Behind her, more drop pods were falling like metal rain as additional human forces deployed across the planet's surface. The 7th Expeditionary Fleet was landing an entire division of soldiers, each one trained for exactly this type of combat. In the underground command center, David Ross watched the battle through his periscope with growing amazement. The human soldiers moved across the battlefield like unstoppable machines, their armor deflecting enemy fire while their weapons carved through Vorthak defenses. After months of desperate retreat, it was incredible to see their tormentors running, in fear. "Maria, get everyone ready for evacuation," he ordered, while continuing to observe the surface battle. "Our people are winning up there, but this planet won't be safe until every Vorthak is dead or gone." Maria Santos began organizing the colonists for movement to the surface, her security training finally proving useful for something other than hopeless last stands. Children who had spent months in underground darkness would soon see sunlight again, while adults who had given up hope were preparing to rebuild their lives. Dr. Thomas Green worked frantically to stabilize the wounded for transport to the human medical ships waiting in orbit. His limited supplies had kept people alive for 3 months, but now they would have access to the finest medical technology Earth could provide. General Thrak watched his carefully planned defenses crumble from his command post in the captured mining facility. The mammals were fighting with a ferocity and coordination that defied everything his military experience had taught him. Individual Vorthak soldiers were superior to individual humans, but these Earth warriors fought as a unified organism that multiplied their individual effectiveness. "All units, fall back to the secondary defensive line," he ordered through gritted teeth. "Prepare the heavy weapons for a final stand." His communications officer looked up from his station with fear showing in his reptilian eyes. "General, we're receiving reports of human forces landing at 17 different locations across the planet. They have us surrounded." Thrak studied his tactical displays with growing despair. The humans had not simply come to rescue their colonists. They had come to destroy every Vorthak presence on Haven's Rest and ensure that this world would never again threaten human lives. Kate's Alpha Squad reached the colony's outer perimeter just as the evacuating colonists began emerging from their underground shelters. The first human she saw was a young girl, perhaps 8 years old, who looked up at her powered armor with wonder rather than fear. "Are you here to take us home?" the child asked in a small voice. Kate knelt down so her helmet was at the girl's eye level, her armor's external speakers allowing normal conversation. "That's right, sweetheart. We're here to take everyone home." Behind the little girl came hundreds of other colonists, their faces showing months of hardship but also growing hope as they saw their rescuers. These were miners and engineers, teachers, and doctors, ordinary people who had shown extraordinary courage in the face of impossible odds. Corporal Tim Rodriguez established a defensive perimeter around the evacuation zone, while more human forces continued landing across the planet. The Vorthak were in full retreat now, their ground forces scattered, and their command structure collapsing under the sustained assault. "Kate, this is Nick Torres aboard Ghost Runner," came a transmission from orbit. We've intercepted Vorthak communications indicating they're preparing to destroy the mining facilities rather than let them fall into human hands. Kate cursed softly inside her helmet. The mining equipment was valuable, but not worth human lives. Tim, get those people to the evacuation shuttles immediately. We'll deal with Thrak's tantrum after everyone is safe. The evacuation proceeded with military efficiency as human shuttles landed near the colony center. Each vessel could carry 50 colonists to the safety of the medical ships waiting in orbit, where Earth's best doctors were preparing to treat months of malnutrition and psychological trauma. David Ross was among the last to board an evacuation shuttle, insisting that every colonist reach safety before he abandoned his post. As his shuttle lifted off from Haven's Rest surface, he looked down at the world that had been both paradise and hell for his people. "Thank you," he said quietly to the shuttle pilot, a young human officer whose uniform bore the insignia of the 7th Expeditionary Fleet. "Just doing our job, sir," the pilot replied. "No human gets left behind. That's our promise." On the surface, Kate's forces began their final assault on the mining facility where General Thrak had made his last stand. The Vorthak commander had chosen to fight rather than retreat, and Kate respected that decision even as she prepared to destroy him. "All squads advance by fire and movement," she commanded as her soldiers approached the facility. "These aliens wanted a war. Let's give them one they'll remember." The thunder of human weapons echoed across Haven's Rest as Earth's warriors closed in on their prey. Above them, Admiral Rebecca Stone watched from the bridge of the Retribution with grim satisfaction. The colonists were safe. The Vorthak fleet was scattered, and ground forces were mopping up the last resistance. Lightning had struck from the void, and Haven's Rest would soon be free. The only question remaining was whether General Thrak would have the wisdom to surrender or the foolishness to die fighting. Either way, his reign of terror was ending with the dawn of a new day. The sun climbed higher over Haven's Rest as Admiral Rebecca Stone's shuttle touched down in the colony's central plaza. Her boots hit the desert sand with purpose, while around her the sounds of battle were finally fading into memory. The smoking ruins of Vorthak positions dotted the landscape like broken teeth, while human soldiers in powered armor maintained security around the evacuation zones. General Thrak emerged from the mining facility with his hands raised in surrender, his scaled face showing the defeat of someone who had finally met a superior enemy. His ornate armor was scorched and damaged, while the weapon at his side remained untouched in its holster. Behind him came the last dozen Vorthak soldiers on Haven's Rest, their resistance finally broken by humanity's overwhelming response. Captain Alex Rivers approached the alien commander with his sidearm drawn but lowered. The human officer had seen too much combat to take unnecessary risks, but he recognized genuine surrender when he saw it. "General Thrak, by the authority of the Earth Defense Force, you are under arrest for war crimes against human colonies." Thrak looked up at the human ships filling the sky above them, their hulls gleaming in the morning sunlight like metal angels. For 3 months he had hunted these mammals like prey animals, never imagining that they could mount such a devastating counterattack. His empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, but none of those victories had prepared him for facing humanity's wrath. "How did you cross the void so quickly?" he asked in heavily accented English, his reptilian voice showing genuine curiosity despite his defeat. "Our intelligence indicated that human vessels lacked the range for deep space operations." Rebecca stepped forward, her admiral's uniform immaculate despite the chaos of recent combat. She studied the alien general with the same clinical interest she might show a particularly dangerous specimen. "You made one critical error in your intelligence gathering, General. You assumed that human colonies exist in isolation from each other." She gestured toward the human fleet maintaining orbital positions above them. "Every human settlement, no matter how remote, is connected to Earth and to each other. When you attacked Haven's Rest, you attacked all of humanity. Our response was inevitable. Kate Miller's Alpha Squad maintained a defensive perimeter around the surrender ceremony, while other human forces continued securing the planet. Her armor's sensors showed no remaining hostile contacts, but years of combat experience had taught her never to relax until every enemy was confirmed, neutralized, or captured. "Admiral," she reported through the communication system, "planet-wide, sweep is complete. All Vorthak forces are either eliminated or in custody. Haven's Rest is secure." Rebecca nodded with satisfaction while looking around at the colonists who were returning to the surface after months of underground captivity. Children ran between the legs of armored soldiers, while their parents embraced each other with tears of relief. The nightmare was finally over. David Ross approached the group of officers with Maria Santos at his side, both of them still showing the effects of their long ordeal. The colony administrator's face was gaunt from months of rationed food, but his eyes burned with gratitude as he looked at the human soldiers who had crossed the galaxy to save his people. "Admiral Stone," he said, his voice breaking slightly, with emotion. "I don't know how to thank you. We thought we were going to die alone out here." Rebecca placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression softening as she looked at the man who had kept 2,000 people alive against impossible odds. "You held the line, David. You and your people gave us time to reach you. That took more courage than anything my soldiers did today." Dr. Emily Carter was examining captured Vorthak equipment with scientific fascination, her xenobiology expertise finally getting first-hand access to alien technology. "Admiral, preliminary analysis suggests their weapons are less advanced than our intelligence indicated. They rely on brute force rather than precision engineering. That matches their military tactics," Alex observed while watching Vorthak prisoners being loaded onto transport shuttles. "They're used to fighting enemies that surrender quickly. They never developed strategies for prolonged resistance." Ryan. Walsh looked up from his portable communication console, where he had been monitoring Vorthak transmissions across the star system. "Admiral, we're intercepting distress calls from their remaining ships. They're requesting immediate extraction." "From the system?" Rebecca smiled with cold satisfaction. "Denied. Any Vorthak vessel that wants to leave this system will do so through our custody. The survivors can carry a message back to their empire about the price of attacking human colonies." Lieutenant Paul Anderson's voice crackled through the communication system from his position aboard Thunderstrike. "Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting Vorthak reinforcements approaching the system. Estimated arrival time is 6 hours." The news caused a stir among the human officers, but Rebecca remained calm as she considered their tactical situation. "How many ships, Paul?" 57 vessels of various classes, including what appears to be a Dreadnought-class command ship. "This is a full battle fleet, Admiral." General Thrak looked up with what might have been hope showing in his reptilian eyes. "Admiral Krex commands the Third Fleet. He will not be as easily defeated as my ground forces were." Rebecca turned to study the alien general with renewed interest. "Is that a threat, General?" "A warning," Thrak replied. "Krex has never been defeated in battle. He will not accept the loss of this system without a fight that will destroy everything you came here to protect." Kate Miller stepped forward, her powered armor making her an imposing figure despite her relatively small size. "Admiral, my people are still combat-ready. If you want to make a statement to the Vorthak Empire, this would be the perfect opportunity." Rebecca looked around at her officers and saw the same determination in their eyes that had carried them across the galaxy to Haven's Rest. These were not soldiers looking for an easy victory. They were warriors defending their people, and they would not be intimidated by superior numbers. "All fleet units, this is Admiral Stone," she announced through the communication system. "Vorthak reinforcements are approaching our position. We could withdraw and declare this mission complete, but that would leave the door open for future attacks on human colonies." She paused, letting her words reach every ship in the fleet. Instead, we're going to send a message that the Vorthak Empire will never forget. Any alien species that threatens human civilians will face the full wrath of Earth's military. No exceptions, no mercy, and no retreat. The response from 12,000 human voices was immediate and overwhelming. Cheers echoed across the communication channels as soldiers prepared for another battle, this one even larger than the engagement that had broken the original blockade. Commander Nick Torres transmitted from Ghost Runner, his voice showing the controlled excitement of a warrior facing a worthy challenge. "Admiral, my stealth systems are ready for another electronic warfare operation. We can disable their sensors just like we did with the First Fleet." "Negative, Nick," Rebecca replied with a slight smile. "This time we're going to meet them head-on. I want Admiral Krex to see exactly what he's facing before we destroy his fleet." Dr. Thomas Green looked up from his medical station, where he had been treating the last of the wounded colonists. "Admiral, the evacuation is complete. All civilians are safely aboard the medical ships and ready for transport to Earth." "Excellent. Maria, I want you and David aboard the first transport back to Earth. Your people have suffered enough." "Maria." Santos shook her head firmly. "With respect, Admiral, this is our home. We're not leaving until we know it's safe." David nodded in agreement. "Haven's Rest belongs to humanity, and we intend to keep it that way. If you're making a stand here, we stand with you." Rebecca looked at the determination on their faces and recognized the same stubborn courage that had kept them alive for 3 months of siege. These colonists had earned the right to see their ordeal through to its conclusion. "Very well, but you observe from orbit aboard Retribution. I won't risk civilian casualties in the coming battle." As the human fleet prepared for the arrival of Admiral Krex's reinforcements, the colonists of Haven's Rest watched from their rescue ships with mixture of gratitude and awe. They had been saved by warriors who crossed impossible distances to answer their call for help. And now those same warriors were preparing to face an even greater threat to ensure their safety. The sun reached its zenith over Haven's Rest as human ships moved into battle formation high above the planet's surface. In 6 hours, the largest space battle in human history would begin as Earth's finest faced the cream of the Vorthak Empire's military might. But for now, in the growing heat of the desert day, 2,000 human colonists were free to see sunlight again. Children played in the sand while their parents made plans to rebuild their homes. The long wait in darkness was over, and dawn's light revealed a future where humanity would never again face the void alone. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood in the central plaza of Haven's Rest, looking up at the ships that carried her people towards safety, and knew that this battle would echo across the galaxy for generations. The Vorthak Empire was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their technology or their tactics. It was their absolute refusal to abandon their own, no matter how far from home they might be, no matter what odds they faced, and no matter what price they had to pay. The message would be written in fire across the stars, and every alien species in the galaxy would learn to respect the fury of Earth's warriors when their people were threatened. The dawn was bright over Haven's Rest, and humanity's light would never be extinguished again.